Well, let's see if we can get some more on that from Vuk Jeremić, who is the president of the 67th session of the United Nations General Assembly and is also Serbia's Minister for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Mark's Stone there reporting that train being held up going into Serbia, and I understand that is because Serbia has today tightened its rules on the admission of migrants. Is that correct?
Well, what's currently happening on the ground, that's difficult to judge from Davos, but what's definitely happening inside Europe is that the Dublin Agreement is essentially clinically dead, and that the next victim may be Schengen, unless there is a decisive action on behalf of European leaders with regard to how to handle this situation.
In Serbia in particular, which of course is not yet a member of the European Union, I understand the decision's been taken not to admit migrants unless they have clear right of passage to Austria or Germany. Is that correct?
That's not according to my understanding.
Well, it was announced today by a Serbian minister. Also announced that people would not be readmitted once they passed out of Serbian territory. Is that also the case?
I think that what Serbia is going to do in the coming hours and days is very much in tune with what the European decision is going to be with regard to how to handle this flood. And I think that all eyes and ears are on this summit that President Juncker has just called. Depending on the outcome of the summit, we'll see how the situation develops.
But basically what's happening is countries are closing their borders, which means that the migrants, and the flow has not stopped, are simply just stuck where they are. Would that be a fair summary of the situation?
I think that the fair summary of the situation is that we are faced with a catastrophe, with a humanitarian disaster, which I hope we don't end up witnessing or being a part of in our times in the European territory. So something very quickly and something very decisive needs to be done, because otherwise we're going to be faced with a humanitarian disaster leading to deep political instability, not only in the Balkans, but in the Europe itself.
And what will Serbia be arguing should be done about this flow of migrants? Well,
now that the Dublin Agreement is dead, in order to have something reasonable to replace it, two critical things ought to be looked at. One is how to strengthen the external borders of the European Union, and the second thing is how to make sure the reallocation mechanism between the European states are agreed, because the ones that we've had so far are clearly not working, and the people are clearly continuing to flow. So these two things need to be addressed: the border itself and what to do with the people who arrived at the border. Is it Macedonian or a Serbian or an Austrian border? Quite frankly, I don't think it matters. They are on the European continent, and there are certain values that are inherent to the European project that, in my opinion, must not be abandoned in this critical situation.
I mean, the Dublin Convention was that asylum seekers should seek asylum in the country in which they arrived, which obviously puts a lot of pressure on countries like Italy and Greece, and also in Eastern Europe as well. If that is replaced, presumably the answer would be that countries ought to resettle migrants according to their size. Do you think there's any appetite for that in a large country like Poland, for example?
Well, it sounds very logical with what you're suggesting, and I personally think that something like that should be the foundation of an agreement. Obviously, it's down to European leaders to decide, but fundamentally what has to be at the heart of this future, hopefully, agreement is burden sharing, is equitable burden sharing. You know, everyone's first in the line when it comes to sharing of the benefits of being a member of the European family, where there are certain burdens as well in difficult times, and this moment is one of such times. If there is no solidarity, if there is no mutual understanding on how to share the burden, then I am afraid that the European project, the historical European project, may be in danger.
And what do you think about Britain? Because Britain is spending more than anyone else on assisting refugees in the Middle East, but it's taken tens of thousands of refugees, where Germany has taken over 1 million. Do you think Britain should be taking more of these migrants?
Well, I'm not a citizen of Britain. I'm not a decision maker in Britain, so it's difficult for me to say what is best for Britain to do. But what's currently happening in Britain with regard to its internal discussion, its internal debate, whether or not to stay in the European Union, is certainly not helpful. But the world is not going to wait. The refugees are not going to wait. Europe is not going to wait for the outcome of the British debate. So I think that Britain will need to really engage in this discussion in its current capacity. And Britain's current capacity is one of the most significant members of the Union. They can't be on a side. They cannot sit on a fence of this discussion. And I think that everybody should take an equitable burden.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Davos. Thank you.